Hi, everyone. This is a podcast with Cheda Mikic, and we have done a previous podcast. So if you haven't watched that one, it will be linked. It's a podcast about psychedelics, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into this stuff today. So just to introduce Cheda, he's a naturopath, craniosacral therapist. He was my TRE trainer. He has over 30 years experience in complementary medicine, and he blends anatomy, psychology, ancient wisdom into his practice. And he's very rooted and grounded in nature, and he lives on a farm in Italy. So welcome, Cheda. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and great to be here.
Yeah, so today we are going to talk about the topic of fawning, and we're going to talk about it in relation to things like TRE, tension and trauma release exercises, psychedelics, and just what we see in our clinical practices that maybe isn't being talked about, isn't being studied, because I think we both agree that this is a very neglected response that isn't talked about or studied enough. So why don't you kick us off just by explaining what it is and broadly what it looks like, how it shows up.
So Fawn, it's one of the strategies that our nervous system uses when it feels under threat of a particular kind. And it's not very well known or established, let's say, in much of the even trauma community and so on. And yeah, you do have fight, flight, and freeze as the main responses of the nervous system that's under threat. However, fawning, I came across this specific work about 6-7 years ago, and I was fascinated by that because I saw people around me, I saw entire society actually being in fawn response. And then researching deeper, I found that in scientific community also there was a disagreement about the place where the fawn actually is positioned, and also the fawn and appeasement being quite similar responses and different responses. And again, there was some controversy, or I would say more differentiation in opinions. And I think we are stuck in some place where people don't really agree on certain things, and they like to be righteous about their own views. But I in a way, I kind of put that aside, and I engaged in my own practice and through embodied work. And I work with Fawn now, and I teach that is a part of my TRE certification process. But I also do advanced workshops for all therapists, but also for lay people, anyone that's interested in their own life, and then the management and so on. So that's kind of a little background from where Fawn.
Yeah, and we'll connect everybody to your workshops and everything at the end. So I was really interested in something you just said, which was there's some argument around the difference between appeasement and fawning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the discussion is which one is more automatic response and which one is more voluntary. So in reality, the fawn differentiates from fight, flight, and freeze because they're deeply embedded in nervous system, fast response related to vagus nerve mainly, and parts of the brain stem, this oldest region of the brain that governs most of the unconscious involuntary actions. However, with the fawn and appeasement, what comes online more is the prefrontal cortex that is part of the response, where you will choose where to fawn if you're aware of that. Often people just fawn simply because they are not aware of their behaviors and so on. And appeasement or pacification. So you're trying to neutralize the danger through making everyone okay, making situation okay. And some people say there is not such a clear cut, and some people claim it's a big difference. And discussion within the racial communities and some of the, let's say, feminist movement and so on, they rate slightly differently fawning and appeasement. In my own experience, there isn't a huge difference. You can analyze this a lot. If I look at the human body, the response is quite similar. You make yourself slightly smaller or much smaller to neutralize the situation. There is an inner contraction, protective mechanism kicks in, and you're finding any kind of strategy to neutralize the threat that you might perceive. So because in my view also that takes us away from actually identifying within each person where you show up in there. Where does the form or appeasement show up within you, in your own body, in your own behavior patterns, in your own family of origin, in your own community, your religious background, or your social. So it keeps kind of opening the larger and larger circles of some of the fawning that I can see being established and not by accident over kind of larger populations.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So let's talk about animals, because I think this is an interesting way to look at it, because I have a dog. She performs appeasement responses all the time. I think a lot of people are actually unaware of when their dogs are appeasing, because they'll do things like lie on their back and show you their belly, and they think they want belly rubs, but they don't. They're saying, get away from me. I don't want you to touch me. I'm not a threat. Look what I'm doing. When a bigger dog comes over, she'll do the same thing. If she's in trouble or she's done something naughty, she'll come and give me kisses. So I think if we even take out human conditioning, this exists within mammals, right? Don't know if it exists within fish, but it exists within mammals.
Yeah, exactly. We can see that in mammalian kingdom, and that behavior that you described. It's deeply embedded, and also I do believe there is a range of systems that are engaged in this. So you have, for example, obviously the brainstem is regulating this, like the vagal nuclei in the brainstem. However, then you have amygdala, which is the threat center that is always kind of scanning for the safety and danger and so on. However, you got anterior cingulate cortex and the hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system, and that often is very strongly developed in mammals. So they remember and they perceive threats beyond cognitive awareness. However, with us, we do have additional thing. We do have prefrontal cortex, and sometimes you would choose what kind of phoning you would do as well. So you might lower your voice, you might prostrate yourself as well, that very rarely, but there are situations you would do that, even in intimate relationships or sexual relationships, in order to please a partner. You would do that, and we see that with the female bodies a lot more. However, male will do the same thing, and then there would be more complicated situations, including loss of erection and things like that. Then however, often what you would see that differentiation is this. I want to play, or I'm just going to be sweet and nice, either as a puppy or as an adult. It's not often clear. And in family of origins, we see these children will lose that authenticity because of the attachment needs. And I think that's a big part that Gabor Mate talks about, and I connected that to the phone response. That to me was a really clear connection, and I think that's separation, I would say, differentiation. So I think that the work for humans in particular is to differentiate without disconnecting from each other, and also to merge without disappearing.
Yeah.
But as a foundation of this response is that you will, if I want to be authentic self, for example, I need to differentiate. I think the key here is soft attachments, because we are attached to others and connected with others most of the time, and for the great reason that's how we are wired as humans. But also on the other spectrum, paradoxically, we can be so needy to be connected with someone, so we disappear. There is no boundary. Then we disappear into someone else, and then there is a heavy codependence, and all kind of abuse and other complex behaviors come from that.
Yeah. So in a way, this fawn response, this appeasement response, has kept people in connection with each other. Because if we look back to, everyone keeps saying, I want to find my tribe. And it's like, you actually don't want to find your tribe. Because if you found a tribe, you'd have to sacrifice the authenticity that you actually want. And you would have to try and blend in, and you would have to appease, and you would have to become part of one singular thing. A tribe isn't a bunch of individual, authentic people living in their full expression. There has to be some kind of compromise there. There has to be either a belief system or something that holds these people together. And so what we're saying is this loss of authenticity of self actually does help to keep social structures in place. So what I wonder about is, are we evolving into a different type of connection as humans? Because we can't do both anymore. We can't have these connections to people who force us into shrinking, who force us into abandoning ourselves, especially as women in perimenopause. You just can't fucking do it anymore. You get to this point where you're like, no, even if it does cost me my connection, I'm willing to pay that price, because I'm not able sometimes to fawn anymore. I'm not able to appease anymore. And I think that's because we've done it in such an extreme capacity for so long that it just becomes intolerable and your body just completely rejects it. So yeah, my question, I guess, is like, where do you think human connection is heading? Because it has to change.
Okay, so I mean, that's such a big
Question.
big question, but also big topic that we really need to engage with openly. You see, also to agree to disagree with some of these things, because no one knows. You see, that's an honest answer. If I don't know exactly, because my truth, my perception of reality is going to be different to yours, and we might meet in some points, we might not meet on others, but that does not exclude that someone is right or wrong. So we need to learn not to be also manipulated, because I do believe that taking any position obsessively or fundamentally, in reality, you are dissociating and you are separating from others. You're not allowing someone else to think differently to you, to feel differently. And I think that at the bottom line is a trauma response. Okay. That's and we all have that. I mean, and I can say, thanks to some of my work and psychedelics and some of the trauma and TRE and nervous system regulation work, only in recent years, even as an established teacher, let's say, only in recent years, I have much greater capacity to actually hold other people's views slightly more openly. Still, my defenses will arise, but I will notice that. You see, before, yeah, you notice, but you still will override with reaction rather than with response and so on. And so to come back to that, a big question is early childhood is the key here. So how your parents, how me as a parent, so to speak about my children, how I connect with them, how I allow their authenticity to express, but also they need to be part of the family. They can't do everything they want. If I let them do anything they want, it would be a chaos there. It's too much responsibility to allow a child to just do what it wants, because it can't. It needs to be guided in a way by also the level of parenting. The parents need to have some level of consciousness and awareness and acceptance and so on. So it is a kind of big job, but I think this is where it starts. Because Fawn also, in my experience, develops not just Fawn, the range of our responses and behaviors through these developmental stages that I work with and I teach and I learn through the work of Eric Erickson. And each stage helps your body, your brain, your behavior, and so on develop. And certain things you can't develop at 5 because you're not mature enough. Certain hormonal shifts that are profoundly affecting our responses. You're not going to experience that at 5, and they will be different in menopause or perimenopause and so on. And you said you can't tolerate this. Of course you can't tolerate this, because certain behaviors that you received as a child, they're not tolerable any longer as a teenager, as a later adult, and so on. And that is hormonally, psycho-emotionally, and your nervous system, and spiritually in a way. Certain needs and kind of effects of these epigenetic environmental effects, your system can't simply tolerate any longer. And that's why we see a lot of dis-ease, imbalances. The humans suffer with the range of somatic problems, like bodily dysfunctions, tiredness, lack of energy, not to mention about the different diseases and so on. And this is partially because we did not understand different responses in our body. We carried on in the survival mode, in the pleasing mode, in all different modes, but in our own inner rhythm, in our own personal modes. And then when you start going into closer to yourself, then the whole world changes, and then a lot of emotions that have been subdued, blocked, and not expressed, they start to dominate, they start to rule, and then you become this vicious psycho bitch or psycho bastard or all of these things, which is understandable again. And there's no judgment on that, because hormonally, psychologically, and psycho-emotionally, you can't hold it any longer. So my view is on that. Yeah, I can tolerate it to some level. I can justify that, but there is a limit that I can accept that, regardless of what has happened to you, you have no right to attack me and abuse me, for example. And often we do that as a really, last drop in my already overflowing glass. Yeah. But going back and kind of helping to regulate a younger adult, a teenager, giving more support, giving more encouragement and more tolerance, but also the boundary. And that work is tough, and I can see this doing with my own children. For example, it's for my daughter, it's very different than to my son, and anyway, so that's kind of where I would come from, and try to repair some of this early patterning in order for you to present differently to yourself and to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting hearing it from a parent's perspective, because you're obviously a conscious parent. You understand this stuff, so you've had a bit of a head start, from where your parents were, from where their parents were, probably a fucking huge head start. So we're talking about two different things. We're talking about almost like the prevention of this happening, this bucket overflowing situation, which is what you're practicing with your children. Okay, I know these developmental stages. I know how this fawn starts to embed itself young, so you can spot that. You can, consciously parent your kids. I think the other side of it is this generation, like my generation now, who were not parented like that, and who did reach bucket overflow, probably in late 30s, 40s. And what you just spoke about is what I call the pendulum effect. So it's like you've been a doormat for your whole life. Then, your estrogen starts to decline, you can't be passive anymore, and suddenly the fucking pendulum swings so far the other way, and you go into your raging bitch era. And this is what I'm seeing happen with a lot of women, because they're not doing the nervous system stuff underneath that. So we're just using, our mind and our willpower and all this bullshit advice that you hear, like, just don't give a fuck what anyone thinks of you, girlfriend, and it's like, that's not helping you. That's just giving you permission to bypass the repatterning work and swing into raging bitch, which I do also think is a little bit necessary to give your system that almost mobilization. And I think that rage is really important to work with as well, which is why I do a lot of rage work with women. And then you can integrate into this more adult, balanced. That doesn't mean passive. It means sovereign, being able to, yes, use your healthy anger, use your boundaries, but there's so much fucking work in between, to get to that balanced state. And I think that pendulum does need to swing back and forth a little bit before you find that balance. But if you're not conscious of that process, I do think you're right. You can just swing all the way over here into aggression and get stuck.
Yeah, totally. Beautifully described. And often some of these states are very seductive, just to say.
They feel good.
Absolutely. If you haven't expressed rage ever properly, of course you're going to say, oh my God, this is so good, and people look at me differently and all of this, until you just start to overflow, and any response will kind of become leading towards that, some of the rage, and then your neurological synaptic, the constellations and body constellations will form, and that will become very strong pattern. And I do agree with you, it's necessary. However, not all responses require for you to draw the sword. I call that, drawing the sword. In certain situations, some people cannot understand kindness and common sense and so on. So you definitely draw the sword. I think we need to have different skills. I teach my daughter, she's 20. She's in London now studying. And she has a good start, I would say. Not perfect, but great start. And I can see how much she shifted, how much she's so much smarter than me. My God, when I was 20. Oh, it's just, it's extraordinary, really. She needs to have different strategies in life. Different people will require different strategies. And also some of the in-family abuse that we do to each other. Like you can, just attack your parents or your children and just be humiliating and insulting. Why? I mean, we all can do that, but I really ask for more of a more of a pause. Of course you can, because to say, oh, they trigger me and all of these things. That's where the work is, though. And by work, I also don't mean, oh, you need to sit down in the meditation or in therapy, or you come and do theory all the time. Actually living experience. You need to create strategies. Your work, your life needs to be full of things that feed you and nourish you, and you contribution that you're giving to others and to yourself. That, I think, that's the novelty of work. Not just focusing on therapy and I'm going to be a psycho bitch at work or at home. Really, is this there is a separating you that is, again, only connecting with the particular things. I'm so good on my yoga mats. Oh, wow, great. Well done to that. So really, as you said, integrating in your life. And it's not the weekend workshop thing. It's kind of a ongoing work that's also, not to say work, also play. Let's not make it too overly serious. You're like, with trauma, we're so serious. No, fuck no. I mean, trauma is not a walk in the park, but it's not also hell, though. It is process that actually creates so much more within us.
Yeah, there are definitely pockets of hell, and then but you have to almost go to the hell so you can go back up to the good parts and feel that stuff. I think this leads really well into something that I talk about a lot in my work, which is healing versus what I would call deconditioning. For me, the healing industry, the new age spirituality industry, is perpetuating fawn responses more than anything else, because it's not actually teaching you autonomy. It's not teaching you to listen to that inner guidance. It's not teaching you how to become integrated. It's teaching you how to follow more fucking rules, how to control yourself better. And for women particularly, how to be softer, how to be more receptive, how to be more divine. All this bullshit that we're told femininity is supposed to look like is what women are chasing, because they think that that's what healed is supposed to look like. And it's almost like healing, you're still orbiting everyone around you. You're still looking for that external validation. You're still looking to manage everybody's reaction of you. You're still managing everyone's dysregulation. You don't actually, as far as I can see it, most of the time, flip that around so that you're instead creating capacity to be with whatever your version of truth looks like, and be able to tolerate that person being pissed off, be able to tolerate having a difference of opinion with that person, being able to tolerate, losing relationships sometimes if that needs to happen, being able to tolerate joy, being able to tolerate laughter, being able to tolerate more. I see them as like almost opposites in a lot of ways, a bit like what you just said. Sure, you can spend every day on the yoga mat, but what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? Are you just becoming perfect at yoga? Are you just, using it so you don't have to feel your feelings? Like, it's not the practices that I have an issue with. It's the why, and it's the dogma that surrounds them. So I'd be curious what your opinion on all of that is.
So my opinion on that also would be, I totally agree with you. However, we need to have tolerance also for people in different stage of their development of their awareness. So you're speaking like this now, and I'm speaking now, but 5 years ago, I was a different man. 10 years ago, So we also need to allow these people to go through some of these stages. So, for example, that's kind of a goddess work might need to be explored, or this rage work, or different relationships and different, pits that you might fall into, or ditches and so on. And to me, the key here is that negotiating with yourself what you're actually feeling in different moments, and connecting with your inner rhythm. Because what I also learned, I'm 57 now, and it's been a long journey for me, but I only now, a few years ago, I decided, look, this is only halfway. I'm not kind of going anywhere just yet. I might go tomorrow, but it's a lot more wisdom and capacity now that I can share and live through. I want to enjoy life a lot more and sit in my power as man. And thinking about this 15 years ago, like 60 was like, I'm edging towards 60. That's an old geezer there, you're entering into,
An elder.
And actually,
call it an elder.
But very different, even beyond that. Not even elder. Yeah. I don't even see myself like that. And so engaging with as you are, it will change, and allowing yourself, potentially you will change your mind, but honor what you are right now. Honor that someone else is there right now. I might not like that, but I don't need to be overly discriminative. You have to evaluate the situation, and you need to honor that you don't like certain things, and that's okay too. But also to be more real, that this idea that you're going to reach that perfect place sometime, or you're going to meet this perfect guy or this perfect woman there, or perfect whoever. Are you perfect? You know, there are parts of me that are definitely not perfect. There are parts of me after decades of inner work I still don't like about myself. So how can I expect I'm going to like everything about someone else? So that really puts us in a difficult situation where you are reaching towards some kind of a fantasy idea, still this manufactured image of something you should be, instead of really allowing the fluidity within your system, that rhythm, how your nervous system responds, how your body responds, how your desires respond, your cognitive patterns, your emotional states, all of this, it's not always aligned. And then if you're aligned, that's a deeper illumination kind of aspect. But to allow that sometimes that's not going to happen for you, and that's not going to happen to someone else. And often that it's very rare, it's going to happen between you two. And so especially within the tribe. So I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well, but that's more tolerance and perception about your inner changes, and your connection with someone else will definitely be different in different states. And your main focus should be working in your life on yourself and developing the capacity to be with the range of experiences. Hence, you can tolerate, not just tolerate, but live better, live more beautifully, and allow others to also connect with you more, and for you to connect with others.
Yeah. So when you talked about that inner rhythm, I think that's something I really resonate with, is as a kind of a guide, as a compass through your life. If you can connect to that, you can feel what your body's trying to tell you. You can feel your yes, you can feel your no. Where I have a problem with this is spiritual communities train you to override the inner rhythm. And that's where the fawn response comes in. And so in my work, what I do is I talk about this a lot, and I do criticize it, because I have hundreds of women in my messages, women in my DMs every week telling me a light bulb just went off. I just realized what's going on, because they've been stuck in this fawn, in these new age spaces where they're trying so desperately to reach that perfection, whatever the fuck it is, enlightenment, ego death, which, by the way, women should not be trying to kill their egos. They should be trying to strengthen their relationship to their egos. And so they are very sucked into this. And for a lot of people, it's not a phase. They drop anchor there. They stay there because they think it's a destination. So I was in it for 7 years, wasting so much of my time. I could have left after a year and probably learned everything I needed to learn, because I kept feeling like I was failing. Well, I haven't reached this yet. Well, I'm not enlightened yet. Well, I still feel angry. I'm still a fucking human. I still swear. I must be broken. So I just kept staying in this toxic space, trying to make myself perfect, trying to make myself better. And I see it as a trap, because you can stay there forever and not live your life. And not, I always say, like, some people are like boomerangs, some people are like frisbees. You can get into the new age space and you just keep going deeper and deeper, or you get to a point where you go, hold on a minute, this isn't somewhere that you're supposed to end up, and you kind of boomerang your way back out again. And that's what happened to me, and I'm so grateful that's what happened to me. But I had to have several pretty scary wake-up calls for me to realize, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I giving all my authority away to this belief system or this group or whatever this is? So the reason I criticize it is so that people can see themselves in my story. And sometimes they will, not everybody, some people need to go through whatever they're going through, but a lot of women do say, this has woken me up. And I realized that I've been just deferring to this group of people. I've realized it's quite toxic. And then they seem to find that inner rhythm again. They seem to start hearing it again. And then they realize they haven't been hearing it, right? So I think that's why maybe we differ a little bit. Whereas I think maybe that's just my job. It's just stirring it up a little bit, waking people up a little bit sometimes. People who are ready, if they're ready.
Yeah, great. I mean, exactly, because you please honor that. And I love when you swear. I love when you, because honestly, I mean, being real, I think that's the key here.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what you are, but be yourself more, because people will like you for who you are. They're not going to like you for some image or idea of something. That is going to crumble sooner or later very badly for all of us. And unfortunately, these systems have been kind of projecting this and conditioning us all. And then it comes a point also, this middle-age crisis, like it's such a derogatory and patronizing term, like middle-age fucking crisis. I mean, of course, because I'm not going to do the same job that you conditioned me to do. I don't want to be with the same partner. I want to be with me. Like, that's what I owe to myself. I don't want to humiliate myself or others with a range of other responses that we do. And I think this is more attractive for us men. I see when women is more real, you know, I want your realness. I might not always like your realness there, but when you smell pretense, when you smell fakeness, when you smell like fake orgasm, who wants the fucking fake orgasm? You know, it's just the most, that to me as a man, it's the most humiliating thing, as a matter of fact. And you know, you just lose erection straight away. You see your partner is really not into you, like, oh wow, you know, what's wrong with me? I'm doing something really wrong. But we are not communicating.
Yeah.
Because she's not fully expressing. I'm like afraid because of some of my issues. And then when you start meeting, connect with the person, you open up, and those nonsense bullshit barriers drop. And I mean bullshit barriers not because they were there for the protection, but when the safety is established, when the humanity is established in between, God, you know, a lot happens there. So to me, the realness of a human being as you are, it's the key. And that will change. And there will be people who will love you for who you are, and others who would hate you for you. But that's not your problem. That's not my problem. That's their fucking problem. You know, you like me for who I am. I can't be, I don't want to be anything other than I am. So take me or leave me, all I can. And I think that's your job. That's all of our jobs in the world. Because there is no one like you in the world, though. You're the unique human being, like no one else is like you.
And I think that's what's so sad about fawning, is because you're hiding all of that. You're hiding this snowflake of a person who there's nobody like you, and you're spending all of your energy trying to be generic, and it's like the saddest fucking thing ever. But what you just said was so important, which is, okay, so some people are going to like you and some people are not going to like you. And I have to tell you, being visible on social media has been the biggest challenge of my life in dealing with that, because I'm someone who has innate extreme rejection sensitivity. I'm ADHD, like lots of criticism growing up, like super extreme rejection sensitivity. So one of my practices has been to put myself in the way of criticism. One way I did that was by doing stand-up comedy, because I knew it would be excruciating and I wanted to see if I could tolerate it. It was horrible, but I did it. And in the end, I enjoyed it. And now it's social media. So it's like, okay, I'm going to be as opinionated as I want to be. I'm not fucking filtering myself. I'm not censoring myself. People hate me, Cheda. Like, I get death threats. I get men telling me I should go and die. Every day, someone's calling me a grifter. Every day, somebody's telling me, oh, just the worst things you can imagine. And it's not easy, because, of course, when you've been living in a chronic fawn state, what's your worst nightmare? Being disliked, being judged. And I'm literally putting myself out there going, fucking judge me. And it's been really hard. But after about 6 months, I'm like a bit more resilient to it now. It still makes me angry every now and then. A lot of the time, I just find it funny. Some of them still make me angry, more so when they come from women. It's usually men who hate me. But it's building the nervous system capacity to be able to tolerate that has been the game changer for me. And that is, I couldn't fucking do this with therapy. I couldn't do this with mindset work. Like, there's no way you can touch the nervous system response of rejection with all of those tools. You need a different way of working with this stuff. And I think that's where things like TRE come in. I work with somatic inquiry and I have my own framework for working with this stuff. But it's literally like building those foundations that you didn't develop as a child, because you didn't have conscious parenting like, you're giving to your kids. So as an adult, you almost have to parent yourself into this kind of resilience. And it doesn't really happen through like, oh, well done, well, pat on the head. It happens through tolerating sensation, through working with the sensations in the body, because all the inner child work in the world is not going to touch what it feels like in your body when you feel a rejection. It's so fucking huge. It feels like you've been drop kicked in the chest by a 6'7" man. It's physical. And so for me, working with fawn response, it's more of a sensation based work than it is just all this reframing and all of this, mindset stuff.
Yeah, great. I mean, there are many things I want to say, but I'm so kind of pleased and impressed by you, because I remember you from 2 or 3 years ago. And, certain things that you say, I'm like, oh my God, this is like bits extra, bit heavy. And, but the life force that comes from you, I'm like, fucking yes, great. It's because it's not about me, honestly. This is about you, really, what you're bringing. And you're bringing a huge gift there. And I'm so pleased that you're doing that, because you will touch so many women, particularly, that's your audience there, that need you. And they will love you. And that's great. And the people, they don't. I mean, tough shit. Like, good, you can stick with wherever you're at. And so what? one thing that's, I don't know, I mean, that's, I'm not giving you any advice on that, because I don't really read my the messages from people.
Comments.
Yeah, comments I don't even read. I don't have time. And then it's not that I'm afraid to read, because I also find equally how my ego, in a way, is so pleased with myself when I have this amazing testimonial and I'm, oh yeah, I'm doing great. And I'm catching myself with that. Like, you again, that's a conditioned thing, and it's a natural thing. And then when someone kind of is abusive, then I'm like, oh God, again, you kind of start regressing to that early victim kind of state. And I'm no victim at all. You are not a victim. None of us, we have been victims, but also through this deeper work, we need to shift from that thing, because we are extraordinary beings with a lot of ignorance, with a lot of weaknesses as well, but nonetheless extraordinary as well. And what you just said, to parent yourself and to develop the skills that you didn't have, that to me is the key.
Yeah.
Because developing any skill, a life skill, engages you on all those levels. And that includes the spiritual level. And some of the what I wanted to say earlier about the spiritual communities, they have their place. However, there is the separation there. And in my own life, I realized some of my olive trees here, they are my teachers. They're my children and my spiritual teachers, my parents with all of their faults, my spiritual teachers, truly. You're my spiritual teacher. All the events in life, when you genuinely see that, because it can't be any other way, honestly, if you think about it. Even these abusers teach us in some way. And I think it's a deeper process. And I can say this now, that I embodied that in saying, 10 years ago, I could not say that, to be honest, because I didn't have capacity. And that doesn't mean, I don't like when someone, I had a particular client yesterday, he was incredibly complimentary. And it was interesting to hear, because he's one of the kind of a top medical doctors in Vienna, he has seen so many complimentary people. And he comes to me here like out of totally, you could not imagine how he came to my door here in South Italy, in the middle of nowhere. And he was, genuinely impressed, and he wouldn't let me go. But that, in a way, it was like, okay, my ego is bathing in this stuff, but there was a deeper reason, that some of my preconceived ideas. But equally, someone tomorrow will say, oh, this guy is like total rubbish, So, and you're probably right. Both of you might be right, I'm probably totally rubbish and total legend as well at the same time. So whatever.
I love that huge swing. Yesterday, I had a client in the morning, and she had one of the most incredible TRE sessions I've ever done with someone. It was a longer process, but huge release, and it was like almost like finding this missing piece of a puzzle that she's been trying to find for decades. And that feeling when you're like, oh, this work feels so good. And then I got on my phone and someone was like, just so you know, you're a complete fucking grifter. You're just ripping people off. As far as I can tell, you don't have any qualifications. And it was just this long thing. And I was just laughing my head off. And I put the post up on Instagram and I was like, welcome to my life. Like, this is my morning. This is my afternoon. And it's like, it's like this, right? So if you let yourself be taken away by any of it, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling good about your work or being complimented. I think it's fucking human. It's fine. And I think when someone criticizes you or tells you you're a piece of shit or whatever, you do get that urge to regress, right, to shrink. And I like it, because that's where you can integrate it a little bit more each time. I think if I just avoid it, I know I'm avoiding it, and I can't stop myself reading comments. I can't do it. So for me, it's like, oh, okay, here's an opportunity. What is this still pushing on? What is still wounded? Like, what still hurts? And then it gives me a little window to, like, again, it's always sensation based now. It's not really the story. It's just, okay, where's this showing up in my body? What's happening? It's just this curiosity practice of like, oh, this is really interesting. This still hurts. And then I think gradually it just doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, you see, in both of these cases, you were you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't someone else in the morning, someone else in the afternoon. You were you all along there. So truly, it cannot be your problem. It's a problem of the perception of that person who is saying you're the best or you're the worst. I mean, so, and to me, that goes back to what I was saying. Just be you. Just do what you can. Do as best as you can. And sometimes you're going to do better job. Sometimes you're going to do worse job and shit job. But most of the more you connect with that, I find myself doing a better job month after month, year after year. And less attachment to, what individual person. Of course, I care because our work is a caring work. I mean, I'm not here, going and planning how I'm going to murder someone or rob someone or things like that. And, I know people that do that stuff. So our job is a noble job. And I might not have ever enough qualification for someone. I'm sure, I mean, there are people like extremely qualified. I mean, when I spoke to Stephen Porges and I learned with him personally, and we had a great discussion. And the guy has like doctorates and all of this stuff, academia. I'm not that kind of guy. But the way I touch people, he can't touch people the way I do, or the way you do, for example. So to me, it's like you find your own niche, no matter how much experience someone has or knowledge, you will connect with particular person in a way that no one else will. And I think that's what we need to really respect and appreciate and connect, that kind of that coherence, that resonance with another person when it happens. And it can always happen. But when it does happen, that's non-local, that's infinite kind of moment.
It's just different, isn't it? And I think that a lot of the healing work happens in the connection. So you can be the most qualified psychotherapist in the world. If you don't connect with the person you're working with, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, it does not matter what qualifications you have. And we have been very conditioned to measure someone's competency by how many qualifications and certifications they've collected. They may have the most dysregulated nervous system. They may be completely disconnected from themselves. They may be fawning. Like, you have no idea what's going on with this person. And like you were talking, that non-local thing that happens that we don't really understand doesn't happen in the certifications. It happens in the connection, in the something we don't understand. But I know exactly what you're talking about when it's just, it clicks and it's magic and it's just like, yes.
Exactly. That deeper presence when you connect, that's beyond kind of a cognitive. And not to diminish the cognitive, but there are levels of reality that we are living simultaneously here. So, and yeah, I do love our work. And the older I am, the more experience I have with this. I love what we do. It's a beautiful, noble work. Not everyone will like it, but that's fine. You do what you like. But we need to be more proud, not out of ego, but genuinely, because it's a deeper purpose to what we do. And, you go beyond that purpose when I need to heal myself. I need to be seen. I need to be appreciated. I need to be this big healer. Please don't call me healer. I'm like beyond all of that. I'm no healer. The healer is the consciousness within you and the structures within you. That all I need to do, help you connect with yourself. That's what we do in reality. And so there are different gates how you enter into that field that all the consciousness comes from, and it's kind of resides in this extraordinary body that we have. And so how you get into that and how you connect with that, there are so many ways.
Yeah. I think I'm seeing a common thread with what you're saying, though, which is, again, being connected to that inner rhythm. And you can't do either of those roles, the practitioner or the client, the person receiving, both need to be connected to themselves for that, whatever we're trying to explain, for that to happen. And so what I've seen in myself when I used to go to therapy, and with my clients, I clock it all the time, is fawning in session. And I think that's something that's not spoken about enough in the world of facilitation or practitioners or whatever, is when it's like, well, I'm going to be the good girl. I'm going to do everything you tell me. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do my homework, instead of actually being able to connect in and set boundaries and say no and say, I don't like this. I don't want to do this, because that conditioning will also show up in the room with us, right?
Yeah, totally. And also we need to be careful about phone response, not to be overly judgmental about this, because it's not a personality flaw in a way. It was at the time the most intelligent response, where your system really expressed and then, protected you and, blended within the reality that appeared at that time. However, if it's not, if it's repeated without awareness, then becomes a personality flaw that actually works against you. So I think that's the distinction there that we need to work, and not just with phone, with I think most behavior patterns that we have.
Yeah.
And the honesty is important thing. If we can be self-honest about, and then we become more honest with others. And then, because you see the paradox here, that vulnerability, in order to be honest, you have to be vulnerable as well. And most people are afraid of being vulnerable. And I learned this a long time ago, that when I allowed myself to be vulnerable, it took a lot of strength from within. You see, so vulnerability actually requires strength. So when someone is so defensive and he won't show any vulnerability and he's so outspoken, out fucking knowing all and all of that, it's just a defense mechanism. So what you do, you just need to, allow that. But genuinely, you build the capacity to have some humility and some vulnerability, but that is actually a strength, and that helps transform our behaviors, our patterns, your nervous system. What that tells me, that your nervous system's capacity is just widening. You're becoming more solid, more grounded, more able to receive, and not being swayed like a leaf on a stormy night.
Yeah, totally get that. Is that something that you've noticed a shift in both your personal life and professional life? Do you see a connection there?
Totally, exactly that. So I do believe, as you talked about the psychotherapy qualifications or medical or any other qualifications, because a lot of therapeutic modalities have been developed based on particular books that you need to read, particular exams that you need to do. And they are important as well. Of course, I love my studies and so on. But you need to apply that in life. You need to show up in life with some of this content. Otherwise, that's the split there. That's a separation which stays in your cognitive mind, which is a small part of your brain, actually. The deeper parts of the brain govern your reality more. And if that does not sink down towards the heart area, towards the gut area, this is where we see the problems now. This dysregulation, the illnesses, diseases, dysfunctions, hormonal imbalance in women and in men. Why are we so hormonally imbalanced? Because of these things. Because you've been working against yourself, you've been dishonest, you've been separate from that. And then you have someone who has these amazing qualifications, but they have not applied that in their life. And to me, that really, and in my work for someone, I'm not going to be overly judgmental. Yeah, a little bit judgmental, but, as I said, for how I show up for my wife, for my children, how my wife changed, for example, in the last 6 months, after 20 years of marriage, how many tribulations we went through and challenges, and, is this going to work or no? God, I don't know about it. Oh my God, yeah, this is great. And just allowing that with my children. And my daughter could not, 5 years ago, she hated me. She was 15, 16, COVID time and all of these things, separation, the global fawning response, which affected neurologically so many people and then children as well. Now, I gifted her psychedelic experience for her 19th birthday. And we had actually extraordinary trip together. She asked me after it was a sitter, and then after half an hour, and her started to bawl her eyes out. And I was like, "You okay there?" And she said, "Dad, this is beautiful. This is the most amazing thing. Can you do this with me?" And we did this, and we ended up at the end hugging each other and being two consciousness flickering in the quasars somewhere in the outer universe. And, she still remembers that thing. And from her anxiety, depression, being the worst dad in the world, it was a shift, overnightly shift, which is quite extraordinary. Her fear to come to London, her fear to engage with life, that she had a total freedom before that, but within a short period of time during the COVID period, she crumbled. And then there was amazing recovery and everything else that has happened. It was a great teacher for all of us, including myself.
So we're talking about embodiment, right, versus knowing, and they're very different things. What psychedelics did you do with your daughter? So curious about this.
Ketamine.
Okay.
It was short. It's short. More controlled, and kind of you can limit that, and not the long ones. So later on, she does other stuff, and also because in her circles, there people were doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm saying, listen, please don't wait. I'll provide for you clean stuff. I'll sit for you. I'll do this stuff, and let's do preparation and then post care as well, because I've seen so many issues. I want to try it. I want to try it. This is not a party thing, though. It's a spiritual experience. And thankfully, she did listen. She had a deeper trust in me. And it was one of the most amazing experiences. And, and that spilled into her whole life in a way. So
It almost sounds like a rite of passage, because since then, she's moved out, she's gone to London, she's starting her adult life. So I think that is so missing in the lives of, we're going off on a tangent, but I think it's important. I think that's what we missed. I missed it. There's no rites of passage in our culture, and psychedelics do really provide that.
Totally. And I'm just going to share with you, there was one of my spiritual teachers shared that with me, because his father gave him that gift as well when he was 18 or 19. And he said it changed his life totally. And I remember that it happened 20 years ago, but I remember that. And I said, look, I think after my own research and experience and the combination of embodiment, psychedelics, deeper trauma work, and beautiful life work and life play, I want to add more of play and pleasure. That is so important for all of this nervous system regulation and life expression. And preparing post-care and all of this was really deeply necessary to give her that rite of passage.
Yeah. I mean, I say this often. I think if all families or couples sat down and did MDMA together with exactly what you're saying, I don't really like the word ceremony, but it's almost ritualizing it, making it like that rite of passage, respecting it, doing the integration and the prep. And I've had clients whose marriages have been saved, and but there's so much fear around it. Understandably, again, it's conditioning, all of the fear, and they are to be feared, because things can go wrong. Things can, trauma reactivation, psychosis, it's all happened to me. I know it can all happen. So when it's done with care and the way you did it, it's almost like you did it within the tribe. You did it within that trusted family unit already. So you already have all these connections with each other. There's already that baseline of safety, that baseline of familiarity. That is really what makes a psychedelic journey productive, is safety and familiarity. So yeah, I think that's amazing what you did. And then your wife saw it and was like, oh, I'll have a bit of that.
Totally. And I mean, some of my naturopathic work and understanding trauma and how the brain works and some of the hormonal shifts. So one thing I would add more, that there is more research now that why some of the, not just psychedelic, but particularly psychedelics can be tricky in that. But any healing or therapeutic session might not have bear the best results or best fruit, because it depends on your hormonal state. It depends on the nervous system state. And what we're finding, for example, that depending on your monthly cycle state, your response to psychedelics particularly would be quite different. If you carry some trauma patterns, so please don't do that on your menstrual time when your cycle is on, because it might deplete you. This is for you as when woman is bleeding, she needs connection with herself. She needs a deeper reconnecting with the deeper forces, and that needs support, rather than going into the different expansion. Different expansion is after ovulation and so on. And so there are different states, and if they are respected, you most likely will have a greater experiences than some of the problematic experiences.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I love that there's research actually being done on this now. It's something I've known for years. I don't do journeys with women when they're bleeding if it can be avoided. It's a ceremony in itself. When you are bleeding, you are already in this kind of altered state. You're already so open. That's enough. That is enough. But we've been conditioned to push through, to just think it's normal, to treat every single day of the month like it's the same, which it isn't. But what I find fascinating is like the luteal phase, because that's when, the veil is so thin between your unconscious and your conscious mind, and all the shit is at the surface, right? All of your trauma, your repression, it's all right there at the surface. So we label it PMS, PMDD, we medicate it, but that's actually such a fruitful time to do the work, because it's already there at the surface. It's like waiting behind the door, maybe not necessarily with psychedelics, but to open the door a little bit and allow some of that stuff to be worked through or to be processed. It's such an amazing time for me working with women, and I notice it with almost every woman I work with, is that phase is very difficult for them. But when we actually open the door a little bit, we realize why. It's so obvious. It's like, of course, because this thing is desperately trying to come through and be witnessed and be processed and be integrated. But because we've medicalized everything, it's like, oh, you're broken, there's something wrong with you, just, it's like, fuck off. But we also don't have the space in society to deal with this stuff, because we're expected to be superhuman and look after kids and run around and work and, not have any time to ourselves. So it's tricky.
But that's why work starts there. You need to say, when my wife needs time for herself, she has to have. We need to create that as a family for her. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
for me when I need my own time, and it is so precious though. You cannot be at service at all time. This is totally disrespecting, your nervous system. You need to know when your nervous system, when it's active, when it's in a sympathetic state, when it's in a parasympathetic state. Like going all the time somewhere. Where are we going though? I mean,
Where are
where?
we
I mean,
going?
it's that kind of a, the Anglo-Saxon kind of a industrial age of moving and producing for the barons and for the rulers of the world, that you're just slaving there, phoning away and being in the fronting thing against yourself and against your close environment. Need to find space for you, find your rhythm, adapt the reality towards your rhythm. And I mean, easier said than done, but that is an objective. And there are sometimes moments where you're going to push yourself, extra. But if it's all the time, that totally, it's just a matter of time when you're going to crash. And then you can blame whoever you want to blame. But it's just taking responsibility for this gift that we truly have, though. Yeah, it's, oh gosh, it's so beautiful, though, all of this.
I think you are
When you
potentially speaking to most people's lived experience, though, which is overriding your nervous system state, being plugged into the machine. And I think we also need to speak a little bit about privilege, because not everybody can just say, I'm going to go and take time for myself. If you're a single mother who's trying to make ends meet, or, you can't always choose. You really can't. And that's where it's difficult, when you can't actually choose. You have to keep going, and there's going to be consequences. I mean, for my life, I had to choose. I thought, okay, I can't keep going like this. I don't have the capacity to have children. I don't have the capacity to be in a romantic relationship. I didn't do either of those things. I sacrificed them for my nervous system. And that might sound ridiculous to some people. Well, you've opted out of two of the most important things in a woman's life. But for me, it was like, that's not my purpose here. My deeper purpose is my work. My deeper purpose was to come back to myself, which took a decade. I don't think I had a choice, because if I'd gone down the other route, what would have happened to me? I would have been probably postpartum psychosis, possibly, thrown my baby off a balcony. I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that because I understand my capacity, and I know I wouldn't have had the capacity to be a mother. I wouldn't have had the support around me to be a mother. And that breaks my heart, and I've had to grieve it. But that was my reality of being aware of my capacity, being aware of how fucked my nervous system was, and saying, well, this is not something I'm willing to put a child through. This is not something I'm willing to put myself through. So the choices can be very, very hard.
Totally, but look how much power that comes from you there. I honor you for saying that. I mean, that is a rare thing to hear. So I mean, amazing. And
it doesn't feel good, but it does feel true.
Exactly, it's being brutally honest there, and it's not an easy thing though. But yeah, consequences. Whatever you do or you don't do, there are consequences for that. And there's no judgment. And yeah, definitely single mothers or single fathers, mainly mothers. It's reality is extraordinary, really. I mean, I often look at my wife and I say, I don't know how these people manage. I mean, two of us fairly conscious. I mean, and I'm like fucking pushed extraordinary. So, however, I can see now the shifts, how my daughter is growing into this extraordinary young woman. Really, I mean, and my son, I mean, he's 11. And I'll just tell you how 5 years ago, when it might be just in relation to this, because I went through many stages. I regretted having my children as well, many times. As you said, throwing the baby out of the balcony. I mean, how many of us, I nearly done that with my son. He was 1 year old. We celebrated his birthday on that, and he cried. He had an ear infection and cried the entire night, but he didn't cry. He screamed like for 10 hours, and the entire hotel was in this mountain resort. And I nearly, at one point, I mean, it was just, this thought was like, fuck, I'm going to throw myself off the balcony with him. This is like too much. So luckily I gave it to my wife, and we exchanged through this. And a number of times I mentioned, gosh, what the fuck did I do to my life? I lost myself. Who am I? And that's often I see so many men regret, because they felt used, they felt they lost their way, that all the women wanted. The woman wanted the child. You don't get sex anymore. You don't get connection anymore. You're invisible anymore. You were like this sperm donor, and then and now just shelling the money, buying stuff for providing. And unfortunately, yeah, some of us felt like that through different stages. And I think that's a deeper, this relational intelligence that needs to be developed between people and so on. And from being in a state of regretting that to now being in the state and saying, even some years later, if someone gives me like £1 million and say, have another child, I would say like, mate, keep the money. Like, forget ever having another child. It was my worst thing. To saying now, it's not probably, it's the best thing I've done, actually. I think we were talking the other day as well, and the deeper sense of gratitude that I'm a father of these 2 children, and I raised 3 other children from my previous marriage, but to father these children, it's just extraordinary, and also to went through this 20 years of struggle plus. It's the best thing I've done.
We're at this point 20 years later where you get to reap the rewards now. You're like, oh, I get to watch this beautiful human flourish and fly out of the nest. But I think as humans, we also forget pain. We forget struggles. So we kind of forget what it felt like to go through the darker times and the more difficult times.
But in a way, it is kind of process, because when you realize that, you kind of work for something bigger than you. What kind of job would the fuck I do in my life where I lose sleep, I give endless amount of money, I get shit back, abuse, all of this kind of stuff that's happened, and then occasional oxytocin balancing and serotonin dopamine thing. It's just, but then there is a deeper purpose for that. Like also you said your fulfillment, sense of your work. I mean, it's such a noble, beautiful thing, as well. So when you find some of that alignment, in a way, not finding the job, but when you feel deep alignment with what you do, who you are, that to me is, kids or no kids, job or whatever you do in life, that is your rhythm. You connected with the deeper rhythm, which is bigger than you, in a way. To me, that's from this individualism, this entitlement. Also, I do what I want to do only just for me. It just really puts things into perspective to the greater extent.
I think everybody has that calling, that thing. I think that's kind of why we're all here, to teach each other and to guide each other, and whether that's a parent or whatever, it doesn't matter. But again, back to what we were saying earlier, you can only find that if you're following your own inner compass, your own inner rhythm, your own inner guidance. You can't find it by trying to be like this person and trying to be like that person, or even having kids because you think you're supposed to have kids. Because believe me, there are parents who regret having children. I have worked with them. Yes, they're a gift, but they're also, it's the highest form of responsibility you're ever going to take on in your life. And I don't think people think that through a lot of the time before they have children. Just my personal opinion. But whatever that thing is, I mean, we could link this to kind of self-actualization or whatever, like to come into that thing that you're put here to be. It's also going to be a hero's journey most of the time. It's not going to be, I don't think it's ever easy. I think there always is that turbulence and that challenge, and it has to be earned in a way. I mean, at least that's what's happened for me. This has not been fucking easy. It's been, still is very hard sometimes. So that's what makes it worth it. Is the struggle in some ways, and then coming out the other side. I think that's what humans are actually kind of built for, is to go through little struggles and then to come out the other side.
Totally. And that's post-traumatic growth all the way there. That's,
I remember you talking about that years ago. I remember you talking about that in the training, and I was like, what is post-traumatic growth?
Right. Exactly, because trauma cannot destroy you unless you allow it to be. But you find the resources, you find the capacity, you find skills, you find support, and you will overcome that. And not only will you overcome, you will grow from the experiences. And if I look at back my own life and my ancestral life and everything I went through, I mean, thanks to all of that, none of the books can put everything that has happened. But as a living kind of embodied man who is sharing and giving and helping others through this, thanks to all of this personal experience and my studies, of course, I can say exactly this is what it is. We are wired to grow out of challenges and out of difficult experiences. And I'm not advocating our life should be really fucking hard. So it's a grind every day. You need absolutely total nonsense. If you're grinding, you're working for someone else. You're not working for yourself, in my opinion. But when you are finding your own purpose, the work often will not feel like that. Sometimes you will do a stretch of 12, 15 hours and, oh, you're okay, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I may be tired, but you feel so fulfilled and happy because you're working on a different level. But if you work half an hour grinding for someone else, something you really hate doing, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And people might have a different answers, and we have many excuses. And it took me years and decades to actually be able to say that and orient towards things that I like doing.
How different the world would be if everybody at school was told, find the thing you love, find the thing you're good at, and then just go as hard as you can in that direction, instead of, we're going to homogenize everybody to do these same fucking things that are absolutely not suitable for most of the people, and then make you feel like shit and a failure if you can't put yourself into that box, because that's currently the paradigm we're living in, right? It's unfortunate.
Yeah, currently that has been a couple of 1,000 years at least paradigm, and all of that oppression that is going on, and Fawn response on a large scale. That's to these political, economical structures, some of the patriarchal structures, other things are affecting all of us, I believe in not positive way. There are some positive aspects of civilization, but as you said, what if each child was asked, like, what gift are you bringing here? What would you want to do? And I'm just to say, go back to my daughter, for example, what do you want to do? And she had three things she wants to do. And she was like, Dad, I don't know what's closest to you, to your heart. And I also said, what's the easiest as well? I didn't want it to go too hard. Because often now you need to do hard. No, what's the easiest? And she said, fashion. Let's do fashion. Or I might get bored with it. Doesn't matter. Just do the fucking fashion. Then she wants to do medicine as well. Then if you want to go do the medicine, but don't spend 10 years of your life doing medicine. And then you might be just working with sick people, being abused by the system here. As a lot of doctors are, in a way. And, just do. And it was the best choice. She's loving life now. I think I want to give that freedom to all children in a way. And then say, oh, who's going to clean the roads? We do clean the roads. I clean my own roads here. The town hall doesn't do it, unfortunately. They do nothing here. So you have to do your own stuff.
Maybe AI can learn how to clean the roads instead of make music. That would be great. Because it's so interesting when you give kids the choice. A lot of the times they will pick something creative. So much of the time that the choice will be creativity. It won't necessarily be grind or study or medicine or whatever. So yeah, if we could just flip it so that AI can do all the menial fucking jobs and then we can all be creative, I think we'd be a lot happier as a species.
Totally, I agree. So let's use technology and robotics as we're using now, technology for amazing service that we can help others with. Same thing, rather than harvesting data and the surveillance and manipulation. Honestly, boring. So some of the billionaires can have extra billion.
Yeah, that's where humanity is at the moment, unfortunately. But I think everything we talk about is all connected. I think, this Fawn response is connected to this as well, because, in my opinion, if women were able to step out of this perpetual fawning, they can make a huge difference in the world. When you see most women, when they become wealthy, when they get money, what do they use that money for? To help other people. If you observe any female billionaires, generally they're doing philanthropic work. I don't want to generalize, but it is a pattern that you see. So it's like, let's put the power in the hands of people who are actually going to help humanity instead of continue to kill humanity. And it's not as binary as men versus women, but it's out of balance. And a lot of that is because of this fawn response, in my opinion, is allowing, because part of fawning is allowing things to go unchecked, allowing things to go abuse or, whatever. And it's giving away your power. It's not claiming your power. It's not even realizing that you have power a lot of the time. So I think there's a connection here, and that goes for everybody who's, fawning. It's like, you're not going to make meaningful change if you're in a fawn response.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's trauma response. And, the reason why our societies have been traumatized over and over and from different ways, and the lack and the war and famine. And while some people can count the billions, it is unacceptable, honestly. And unfortunately, women who are childbearing, and also your architecture of your body is designed to hold, to provide, to give something into life rather than penetrate and take. And not most of us men don't actually do that. And, so the purpose of men is to protect that sacred womb and to nurture it and to keep it safe. That's not to be abusive. That's be abusive to the perpetrator, not to the womb carer and life giver. So I think so many of these imbalances are there, and obviously someone is profiting from that. Otherwise, this would not been allowed. Because if you can tell me why, when we need to do another road, another school, another hospital, approve another treatments, improve society, we need to debate this in parliaments across different countries endlessly for months, for years, and so on. We don't have enough money, budget is tight, all of this. And then, there is a notion we need to send, 50 billion to, war in Ukraine, in Gaza, in the Congo. Oh, no worries. Overnight, the budgets are infinite. You see, so just that hypocrisy to me, and I've been in a war, so I'm talking from a personal experience there, how they slaughtered thousands, hundreds of thousands of innocent young men who were manipulated into doing this. And then in the army, amount of fawning and abuse is just extraordinary. And then when they come back home, if they come back home semi-normal, or in also with so many injuries, so they obviously then become victims and abusers within a family often, and so on. So it's just this perpetual war after war after war situation. So when someone says you're politicizing too much this, I'm not. I'm a living example of generations of people who came from. I worked with thousands of people who went through this, and the consequence of some of this behavior are still with us globally. So we have this collective traumatization, and then divide and conquer. Then these people against this. So these are, the religious conflict or national conflict or family conflict. People, we saw that with COVID, we saw that with every single war around that, and it's divide and conquer strategy. And then we all start to form, because if you speak your truth, then other people will be upset, and then you can't really speak your truth, or you become an enemy, and all of that nonsense. And no one is benefiting from that. So once we become more conscious, come back to our own rhythm, then we simply can actually speak greater truth.
So what we're talking about here is the string pullers. There's always people up there pulling strings, and then there's like this almost contagious trauma response that happens lower down that we're unconscious of. And I think there has been a shift since COVID in the amount of fawning that exists in society because of cancel culture, because now there's just a constant witch hunt in society, and everybody's terrified of being cancelled. And it's gone fucking crazy, to the point where there are things I can't talk about. There are things I would want to talk about in this conversation, and I know 80% of people will unfollow me. 80% of people will think I'm a villain if I talk about things that I want to talk about, right? And that's my livelihood, so I can't do that. And it's so unconscious. It's like this need to be righteous is so unconscious, and it's driving so much toxic behavior, and it's creating so much division, and it's creating so much hatred. And I think COVID was a bit of a catalyst for that shift in society.
Yeah, totally. But exactly what you said, you're fawning as I'm fawning as well. Certain things I say, I shared here, but very rarely I would go into the deeper discussion about the manipulation of society. I lived through that. And many people, and this is not genuinely no judgment towards ordinary people we are the victims of that kind of manipulation. And if you think that's not the case, just look at what I just said, where the funds are going. I believe most people have the greatest source in them. It's love and the goodness but most of us do not come to that resource. We go into the pain, we go into the rage, into the fear, into depression, because it's the learned pattern and enforced pattern. But there is a deeper love and care, and your physiology, your body will tell you that, because if you're happy, you will smile. You might be, no matter who you are, it's unlikely you're going to cry if you're happy. Sometimes the tears of happiness can come up. But and all of us, no matter who you are, you would have that kind of response. And if you just look towards that response of you open, you feel care, you feel love, you feel connection with someone, you're in a different state. If you're protective, if you're upset, your whole body is changing the structure, the shape. And so these impulses, if they are repeated all the time, thousands of times a day, that then becomes your reality though. So we can unlearn that. And then the whole point about this work that we do in different ways is unlearning and repatterning, coming back to your genuine, this deeper love. And love is a bigger term, but this deep appreciation and sense of beauty in the world and in reality that we have. I mean, genuine gratitude that we are pulsating organism right now, this consciousness that is manifest here. It's an extraordinary thing though. And most of us are not aware of that, but it's an extraordinary thing that when you experience that, when you feel it right now, there isn't much more really that you need to strive towards. But
yeah, that was, I think, a really beautiful place to bring this to a close, because it's, what else is there to say after that? I think that's the root of the root, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's
Is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish up?
I think I shared and overshared probably.
No such thing as overshare.
So it's just, listen to yourself and come to your own rhythm, really, to your own resonance, your own coherence in the body, and extraordinary amount of cells, mitochondria within you, like trillions of these things working with deep intelligence. So our work is bringing people to that inner intelligence that is existing within us. And it's not a spiritual thing. I'm talking about the physiological aspect. And of course, it is spiritual as well. So no matter what you do, come back to that, with each breath, with each awareness, with each gaze, with each pulse, come to you. And it's a gift to be here, honestly. And so that would be my suggestion. Whatever you do, just come to you, come back home.
Come to you.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you would like to share in terms of your offerings, or anything that you've got going on?
Oh, I've got a lot going on. I mean, I don't know when you're going to be sending this out, but Fawn workshop I'm doing mid-July, but I will repeat in December because a lot of people can't do it this July.
And is that in London? Is that in London?
That's in London, online? And online as well, in person and online, hybrid. And my TRE certification, I do personal work. And also I start doing again something called TRE in water. And on my YouTube channel, there is some of that intro. You can see this nice 9 minutes long. And that's holding people in water and allowing them in non-gravitational states to come back into their own field. And that's extraordinary, really. It's one of the most amazing, personally therapeutic experiences that I had in the past. And allowing that involuntary movement within you to really express, to be without any restrictions while being held. So truly being attuned and attached with another provider, which, I work with that now even more. In the past I did. It's a heavy work though, but it's a beautiful work. So I do some of that in September in Denmark, a retreat style. If you like what I do or what's I speak about, so you check TRE Center and Cheda Mikic, and so that's me.
Yeah, I'll also link all of that in the notes. So just look down here and all your info will be there. I'm not sure when this is going to come out. It will come out in July. It might be after your workshop, but I'll do my best.
That's okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I think so much. I'm going to have to watch it back. There's so much in there. We've obviously gone over time, but I just wanted to thank you for being honest and for talking about, some of the more controversial things and some of the more tricky parts of this work, and I think it's necessary. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, great pleasure. And yeah, I honor you. Well done. Amazing work. And just keep coming back to you. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Truly, it's genuinely not even a compliment. It's actually observation and really, well done. Genuinely pleased to be connected with you. So thank you.
You too.